Hello and welcome. You're watching the national debate. I'm Padmaja Joshi. The Prime Minister and the government has just won the no trust motion. The no trust motion against the Modi government was dismissed. But in the course of the debate that lasted over 3 days, members of the Modi cabinet spoke about a massive expose that was done right here on Times Now of organizations within India who are accused now of furthering Chinese interests.
निशिकांत जी ने इस पर जब विषय उठाया तो मैं स्तब्ध हूं कि कांग्रेस पार्टी ने डिमांड नहीं की कि अगर कोई बड़ी ताकत का पैसा लेकर हिंदुस्तान में व्यवस्थाओं को भंग करना चाहता है, हिंदुस्तान को कलंकित करना चाहता है तो उस पर कार्रवाई करो। ऐसा कांग्रेस का पक्ष नहीं था। कांग्रेस ने पक्ष ये लिया कि जो निशिकांत दुबे के मुंह से शब्द निकले हैं उनको एक्सपंज कर दीजिए।
सभी घमंडिया गठबंधन एक दूसरे को मदद करते हैं, ये लोग पैसा फंडिंग करते हैं और उस फंडिंग के माध्यम से भारत विरोधी ताकतें भारत के खिलाफ प्रोपेगेंडा करती है। और क्या रिश्ता है राहुल गांधी का, कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी ऑफ चाइना के साथ, क्या एमओयू साइन किया है, ये सब तथ्य सामने आने चाहिए। देश को पता चलना चाहिए कि इनकी क्या मंशा है, ये भारत के साथ खड़े या चाइना के साथ खड़े।
न्यूज क्लिक का नाम यदि डिलीट या रेस्टोर हो गया, कांग्रेस को क्या समस्या है सर? न्यूज क्लिक आपका कौन लगता है? पुरकास्ट का नाम यदि रेस्टोर हो गया, पुरकास्ट आपका क्या लगता है? रोहिणी सिंह, अभिसार शर्मा या कोई भी मान लीजिए ठाकुर रंजन प्रागता, यदि उसका डिलीट हो गया नाम या एक्सपंज से फिर बाहर आ गया, आपको क्या परेशानी है? आपका कोई मतलब नहीं है।
Yes, we are talking about the NewsClick controversy, where a series of mails that were first brought to you by Times Now make it very clear how a news organization was not just printing stories which were about glorifying China, but were actually working directly to further Chinese interests, almost taking a dictation from China about the kind of news stories that are to be printed here. This goes much beyond lobbying. This is about trying to put China's interests over that of India itself. With this fast becoming a potent political story, is this going to be a major election issue? The foreign hand, truth or propaganda? Joining us on the debate, we have Shehzad Poonawala, national spokesperson of the BJP, Tushar Gupta, senior editor of Swaraj, Vivek Srivastava, political analyst, also joins us from Delhi, Dr. John Dayal here with me in the studio, and advocate Nikhil Jain here with us in the studio. Let me first start by asking you, Shehzad Poonawala, why is it that the foreign hand becomes a very comfortable bogey? Many people say, right from Indira ji's time to, Rajiv Gandhi's government, to now the Modi government, there's always the other, this dark shadow lurking in the corners.
You see, we must have a debate based on facts. And when it comes to the facts show that whether it is Chinese ka dhanda, Chinese ka propaganda or Chinese ka agenda, that has become the calling card of the Congress party. And therefore, INC should not be called Indian National Congress. It should be called I Need Chinese MOU. Don't they have a standing MOU with the Chinese? They do. I have a photo of that. As much as Mr. Jain might try to deny it, here is the MOU that they've signed. After this MOU was signed, there was a surrender of our economic interest to the extent that we tried to enter into RCEP, our trade deficit balloon, the stance that we took when our territorial integrity was being sacrificed, right from Aksai Chin to Tia Pangnak, Doom Cheli, Demjok. One of the defense ministers got up and said that, look, we will not build any infrastructure. And after that, we also saw a situation where in Doklam, where the first time the Chinese army was countered, at that time, Rahul Gandhi was again meeting the Chinese ambassador. First, they tried to hide it. Now, cut to all of that, you come to NewsClick, where an organization which is openly trying to undermine not just Indian interests, is trying to prop up the Chinese narrative, is trying to create a sense of division within the country, and it is being funded by the Chinese. And who's saying this? Forget the agencies of ED saying it. I know Mr. John Dayal might not believe the ED, even though they put out the proof there. But Mr. John Dayal's ilk, not Mr. John Dayal personally, they revere the New York Times like gospel.
Okay.
It's quoted as gospel. And therefore, when he quotes it as gospel on all issues under the sun, that same gospel of New York Times is saying that this Mr. Singham was pumping in the money on behest of the Chinese into NewsClick. And who comes in their defense when ED takes action? When ED takes action, Mr. Randeep Surjewala, Supriya Shrinate, the Digvijay Singh, all the stalwarts of Congress party come to the defense. Why? Do they come to the defense of organizations which are facing crackdown, say by Kerala state government in Kerala? No, they don't. And therefore, the questions, and look, what were the stories?
So let me ask you this. Are you seriously saying that the Congress and the CPM are actively aiding Chinese interests? Maybe it was an innocent defense because they thought this is a bona fide news organization and they were standing up for freedom of speech and, good journalism, etc.
Okay. Padmaja.
You are saying they are actively furthering Chinese interests.
I made a promise to you at the beginning of the show. I will only speak on facts. I quote Prakash Karat, 1st January 2021, email to Neville Singham. Most important line. The Guancha piece on the CPIM was pretty detailed. It's good to see this type of coverage there at a time when anti-China feelings are being whipped up by the media, since there is a border problem. At that time, 20 soldiers had been killed, had been martyred. He considers it to be a border problem, and he is looking at how there should be a pro-Chinese sentiment, which is being whipped up apparently by people like you. And secondly, this is not the only time. You remember in 2020, Galwan happened. 2021 was the 100-year celebrations of CCP. Mr. Karat and his ilk were there celebrating 100 years of CCP. So, the Communist Party of India should explain, this is the same party, by the way, and Mr. John Dayal was a young man back then. He's still young, and he's my good friend. In 1962, when India-China was fighting a war, one of your comrades, V.S. Achuthanandan, wanted to give blood to the Indian army. And at that time, he was removed from the Politburo, saying that, how dare you give blood to the Indian army?
Okay,
John Dayal would remember it.
So you've taken on many people. Let's start first with the Congress. Nikhil Jain, the BJP's charges that you knew, the Congress party knew what NewsClick was up to, and their defense of NewsClick was not because of some hallowed, respect for hallowed journalism. It was because this is what they want.
Shehzad just showed a photo of Rahul Gandhi with some Chinese officials. I have a photo of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi playing on swings with the Chinese president. Does that mean that the BJP has an MOU?
The Prime Minister was on a swing as the Prime Minister of India. In what capacity was Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi signing an MOU?
Padmaja.
Actually, how did they go to the Beijing Olympics? Do you know that in 2008 Beijing Olympics, Mrs. Gandhi was invited by the Chinese government. The Prime Minister of India wasn't.
There is no proof that such an MOU was ever signed. The BJP has not put on forth any evidence. And if indeed there is an MOU like that, and there is evidence for that, why is Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi, why are they not in jail? China is obviously an adversarial country.
Do you not see a trend over here? 2008 Beijing Olympics, Mrs. Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi invited. Prime Minister of India is not invited. In what capacity? Why are private citizens being invited by the government of China?
We'd be very naive if we think that foreign governments only create relations with people of the government. They do indeed create relations with across the political spectrum.
But should those other people be creating those relations is the question. Of course, everyone wants to create relations with citizens of an enemy state.
There is nothing wrong. China is not an enemy state, and if indeed they are an enemy state, why do we have a $700 billion
which is inimical to our interests?
Why was Modi ji playing on swings?
A state which is inimical to our interests.
Padmaja,
should private citizens be having private relations with inimical states?
Inimical states. How do we call China that when our own Prime Minister plays on a swing with the President, when our own country has a $700 billion trade with the country?
You are doing what about it? I'm asking you a simple question. Why are private citizens of the Congress engaging with the government of China?
They are engaging with political leaders of China.
Why?
And what is wrong in that?
To what end?
What is wrong in that? Why was Narendra Modi
I'm not saying something wrong. I'm asking you to what end? What's the purpose?
This is standard. This is nothing out of the ordinary.
I am as a curious citizen asking you, what is the purpose?
I don't know what the purpose is, but the point is this is nothing out of the ordinary.
Isn't it curious that even you don't know the purpose?
How would I know? I'm not Rahul Gandhi's friend.
Like as a private citizen, Tushar Gupta.
Can I come back on the debate?
One factual intervention.
And then you can.
The Supreme Court actually dealt with this matter of the MOU, and the Supreme Court said, and it's quoted on one of your favorite news organizations, how can a party have a direct deal with China? How can a party have a deal with the Chinese government? This is what the Supreme Court said. And by the way, the Chinese government and the Embassy of China gave money to RGF, based on which the FCRE license was cancelled by the Modi government.
Okay.
The FCRA license of RGF, Rajiv
Grossly
Gandhi
misquoting
Foundation,
the
was cancelled.
statement of the Supreme Court. Why do you not read the entire order? What is the order about? The order is that some person moved a
If there's
petition
nothing
in
to
this.
hide, why don't you show it? You're a member of Congress.
Shehzad,
You're a member of the Congress.
Shehzad,
right?
don't interject.
No,
let me
you're
complete
a
the point.
member.
No, let me complete
Are
the
you a
point.
member?
Supreme Court, somebody approached the Supreme Court as a petitioner saying that the government should look into this MOU. What does the Supreme Court do? The Supreme Court dismisses that petition, saying that how can a political party of this country have an MOU with the other party? So what he's trying to pass off as a declaration, as an observation of the Supreme Court is not an observation of the Supreme Court, but it is a comment. It's comment on the fact that the petition's basis itself is very cavalier. It is laughable. There is no proof to that. And he's going to show that photograph again. I'll show Modi ji's photo playing on the swings again.
Final
Let's
question
get back to the issue.
Yeah,
Let's
final
get back to
question
the
I'm
issue.
going to
Rahul
ask
Gandhi,
you.
the Prime Minister in 2008. Answer the
Rahul
simple
Gandhi is an
question.
important political leader.
How is he important? In what capacity? Answer
In what capacity?
In what capacity was he sitting signing an MOU with the Chinese in 2008? He was not the Prime Minister. He
How
was
do
not
we
in
know?
any
What
official
is the
capacity.
proof?
Was he a cabinet minister? Nikhil, was he a cabinet minister?
What is the proof that an MOU was signed?
There
And if
is a
an MOU was
photograph.
signed, what is
There
the
is a
BJP
It's not
government
just a
doing on
photograph.
it?
One second. One second. It's not just a photograph. There was a press release by the Congress and by the Chinese. Here it is quoted. Congress, Chinese Communist Party signed the MOU. Okay. Congress
And
Party.
what is the MOU about?
As Rahul Gandhi.
That is
All right,
what the
that is
Congress-
what
No, that's
MOU
what. That's
about?
exactly what you are saying. What is the MOU about?
There is a
Disclose
press
it.
release
How is
that
a
an
political
MOU was
party?
signed.
One second. No, Mr. Jain. Congress says it stands for transparency. Then why not put a MOU which has been signed between political party and the Chinese government in public domain? Let people
Why
judge.
does the government of
Why
India
is this
not
so
force them to
secretive?
do it?
Okay, let
Can
me
the
ask-
government, it's
Can
the
we
election
get back-
commission's
can
job.
we- can
It's the election commission that
How is
controls
the-
matters of political parties. You should know that.
Okay, let me ask you a
Election
final
Commission of
question
India
coming back to
only
the
concerns
debate, sir.
itself
Let
with
me
the
ask you
elections
a
and not
final
everything
question
related
coming
to
back to
political
the
Who
debate.
deregisters and registers parties?
And my question is
Is that the only action
do you
against
not
political
see a
parties?
trend over here? You know, each individual episode is being dismissed as MOU was because of, well, you know, we want to have friendly relations. I mean, I frankly am also a private citizen. I did not suddenly waltz off to Nigeria and say, you know, now I want to have some, you know, interaction with you and invite me to your sports gala or whatever. That being said, Beijing Olympics invite an MOU that is signed. Now, a defense of an organization which is furthering Chinese interests. First of all, are we all in agreement that NewsClick right now is in a position where it is shown as furthering Chinese interests?
NewsClick right now has been accused of furthering Chinese interests. There are emails that have not been verified by a judicial court. It may or may not have had. I cannot say. I'm not here to defend NewsClick, but
Sir,
at the
you
same
know-
time, I am not going to level allegations against a media organization that is critical of the government. And now the government agencies are
It
saying.
is not about being critical of the government. Please be critical of the government. But can you try and drum up the support for China in the midst of a COVID crisis? This
No,
is what to say. You say,
absolutely
okay,
wrong.
India floundered. India did a terrible job during COVID. Why are you writing articles saying China learned very
Padmaja.
fast from its mistakes and China has done a yeoman service, a stellar job in handling COVID?
Padmaja,
Why?
the question is that are they writing those pieces on instructions of the Chinese officials?
Yes,
That
because
is
there
what
are
these
actual
emails
emails say.
Are these emails independently
Sir,
verified? Padmaja, are these emails
are you
independently
seriously
verified?
telling me that it's entirely a coincidence that in March 2020, an email is sent saying, we want you to write 3 pieces talking about how China handled COVID really well. And on the 6th of April 2020, exactly 3 pieces are written in NewsClick.
So Padmaja, I'm again
3
saying
pieces.
I am not defending NewsClick. I'm simply saying that first of all, these emails are not independently verified. And let's for the sake of argument, assume these emails are right.
Okay,
They are authentic.
emails are wrong.
Let's
Why is
let's
an
assume for the sake of
organization
argument.
writing articles saying China did a great job handling COVID and India did a terrible job? You think that's factual? That's journalism.
That is their opinion. I'm not going to
Opinion,
get
but it's a news organization, not an opinion piece.
It's an opinion piece. It's an opinion piece.
Okay.
It's not. But Padmaja, one very important point on this. Let's for a moment assume that they were taking money from the Chinese, they were taking instructions from the Chinese officials, and they were doing Chinese propaganda in India. The story first broke out 2 years ago. What has the Indian government been doing?
We'll come
And
to that in a
Padmaja-
second. First of all, you are questioning the veracity of the email. So, Tushar Gupta, this could well be a case of smoke and mirrors. You know, the government may have read the pieces, then fabricated these emails and said, oh, look, they have written 3 pieces. Now, let us make an email about 3 pieces that are to be written and put it on the hard drive of Mr. Prabir Purkayas.
You know, Padmaja, Nikhil might be unaware of how the CCP works, of how they have been running the global media circuit for the last 15 years after the great financial crisis of 2008. But since then, until 2018, they invested around $3 billion in buying media shares across the world. So if someone wants to sit here and pretend, oh, it's just one news organization, it's just someone claiming that an agenda was being propagated on behalf of the CCP, they are wrong. The Chinese have been infiltrating the global media circuit, and we do not know how many skeletons might come out of this closet.
No, but how do you know these emails are not fake? He's saying the emails are only fake.
He's also saying the MOU is fake.
Can I come
He's
in on
also
this?
saying
I'm
everything.
saying they
Okay, he has a point. He has a point.
Can I come on this? So he says the emails are fake. These are the same lot of people. When Afzal Guru was convicted, they even refused to believe that Afzal Guru's conviction is true.
How do you say
They-
that? Have
because
I ever made
who
that
said-
public statement?
Your-
Have I ever made that statement
Mr.
publicly?
Jain, I said your ecosystem.
You said these are the same
You
people.
do not need
I
to.
never
Now you
defended
just
Afzal
you
Guru.
want me to interrupt you every time you speak? Let me complete my point. You'll understand.
Let him finish. Yes.
So there's an ecosystem which says Afzal hum sharminda hai, tere qatil zinda hai. ये अफजल तो मासूम था. This entire biradari of people, this entire jamaat. Now secondly, you just now said, and I'm quoting you, I will not defend NewsClick. You said that? Then why is Surjewala defending? Then why, 1 second, don't interrupt me. Why is Abhishek Manu Singhvi defending? You are a sensible person. You said, I won't defend. I'll see the facts. Let it go to court, right? Very good stand. Why is Surjewala defending? Is Surjewala defending because it's part of the MOU? And thirdly, which you're not disclosing. And thirdly, this money which has come in, it's on record. Forget everything else. Forget the emails. It's on record that Gautam Navlakha, you know who Gautam Navlakha is? UPA put him in jail. He wants Kashmir to secede from India. Gautam Navlakha is part of the Elgar Parishad violence. He is a partner with this Purkhayasta fellow. The money went to Gautam Navlakha. Who is Gautam Navlakha? Why is he in house arrest still? Can you please tell?
Answer.
I think we're not very familiar. My name is neither Randeep Singh Surjewala nor is it Abhishek
I know
Manu
it's not.
Singhvi. I am
That's why I'm
Nikhil
asking
Jain.
you
I
to
am
comment
not
on
defending
them.
the NewsClick.
You comment on Modi ji. Is there any Modi? You comment on Modi all day long. So comment on Surjewala, no?
Let me complete my point. Let me
I am least concerned with what
Nikhil,
Surjewala
No, here is the thing, you know,
let's
it
talk
is-
about the agenda of the Chinese also. Let's go back 2 years. The Chinese say make a case for COVID handling in China. We suddenly have attacks from the Congress on India's vaccine manufacturing, on India's vaccine drive. The Chinese agenda is about supporting the farmers during the farmer protests. What was the Congress doing that? Protesting the very same laws they had in their manifesto. The Chinese agenda is all about hitting the Indian entrepreneurs. What has Rahul Gandhi been doing against Adani and Ambani for absolutely no reason? The Chinese wanted to get Huawei into India. Did they or did they not? And this government took a hard stand that we will not allow Huawei into India's 5G trials. But again, the Congress was abusing Adani and Ambani day in and day out. They continue to do so.
Okay.
So you want us to believe that the Congress are not propagating the Chinese agenda, the news agencies are not propagating the Chinese agenda, but your public stance for the last 2.5 years, it doesn't match up.
Tushar Gupta, again, you know, a lot of citizens would be incredulous at this because what you're suggesting is that there is a pact between, say, people like NewsClick, the Congress Party, the CPM, and perhaps Chinese agencies themselves. Isn't that too incredulous a suggestion?
You know, I would like to believe it's incredulous, but the stances that have been taken in the last 2.5 years, they do not add up. Look what happened during the vaccine drive. The Congress government, along with a lot of regional parties, came out and said, we do not trust Narendra Modi for procurement, let us procure. The center said, fine, go ahead and procure.
Okay.
A couple of months later, they say, no, we want the center to procure, the center does it. Then they create a fear-mongering around vaccine that we do not trust the Indian vaccine, get us Pfizer vaccines. Who were they doing on the behalf of? What evidence did they have that the Indian vaccines do not work and Pfizer may work? And we've all seen what Pfizer has ended up doing.
Okay.
Let's talk about the Kumbh also. Padmaja, do you remember a toolkit surfaced during the second wave of COVID?
Okay, if you go down Kumbh, then, you know, this will become an
Padmaja,
endless
it's all about
debate.
the stance. These agendas were back then being taken by the NewsClick organization and several other agencies which are in the soup. There was also the agenda that blamed the Kumbh for the spread of the Delta wave. Call it a Modi strain.
Okay, let me get
no
in
one
Vivek
wanted to blame
Srivastava.
the
Okay.
no, call it the Modi strain. Remember, they wanted to call the Delta
Okay,
wave.
let
the
me
Modi strain.
bring in Vivek Srivastava on this. Vivek Srivastava, there are at least 3 different, instances which have now become very, very clear. One, to give a clean chit to China on the issue of the COVID mess that they created. 2, further the interests of China vis-a-vis maritime trade. There was a specific mail written saying, listen, US is right now dominating maritime trade. We need to make China the Asian superpower and displace America over there. And third, of course, was attacking India.
Right.
Pumping up China, attacking India, saying India is doing a terrible job. And the CPM's Vijay Prashad, we have Brinda Karat's nephew, Vijay Prashad, who is at the center of all this. The charge is that this is being done deliberately. It's a nexus. It's not a bogey, it's an actual nexus.
No, see, I mean, first of all, there is no nexus, and I think please listen to me very, very patiently. There is a Communist Party in the United States of America also. There is a Communist Party in Germany also. There is a Communist Party in Japan also. One in China you know of, and we are communists and we are in India. So communists are across the globe. We interact, we talk about Marxism, we discuss, we have seminars. It doesn't mean that any one of us is anti our own country, okay? And the unique part of the communists of India is that in 1950s, the communists of this nation decided that to bring about socialism, to bring about equality in the society, you don't need to have a revolution, you don't need to fight, you don't need to raise guns. You go by elections, follow the constitution, convince the people and try to bring about a change. So whether it is CPI or CPM or CPIML, we are all democratic parties believing in the Indian constitution.
What kind of change?
Yeah, change basically a socialist structure. Yeah, a socialist structure, equality of wealth, equality of facilities, equality of healthcare facilities, equality of education.
The emails are saying very clearly that you have to talk about what China should be doing.
Yeah.
Vivek Srivastava, equality of wealth does not exist in China.
Yes,
what are you advocating?
I'll come to China.
No, you are saying we believe in these principles. These principles are not followed in China.
Sir,
have you seen the inequality in China that is prevalent?
No, wait a second. This is not even about what China is doing. They can be left to their own devices.
I'm aware of China.
Sir, hold on a second. The very border of India with China at Arunachal was brought into question by this publication. What are these highfalutin things about socialism, distribution of wealth you're talking about? They are talking about nuts and bolts like, oh, let us dispute India's border with China at Arunachal. Oh, let's make sure that maritime trade goes to China. Oh, let's give a clean chit to China. What socialism?
No. Now, please, now let me explain. Communists across the globe, whatever be the nation, we believe that capitalism is a bad model for mankind. There is an economic diversity. Few people are very rich. They have the power and money in their hands, whereas the masses suffer.
You're sounding like my second-year class in college. I have done an entire year on Marxism. Come to the point.
Let me speak.
Come to the point.
I'm coming to America.
No, I don't need like a thesis on political theory and Marxism.
आप बोलने दीजिए ना.
अरे सर, आप मुद्दे की तो बात कीजिए.
बोलने दीजिए ना फिर.
तो आप मुद्दे की तो बात कीजिए.
पहले. मुद्दे की बात यह है मैडम कि यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स, हाँ तो मुद्दे पे सुनिए आप पहले. यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका एक कैपिटलिस्ट कंट्री है जिसने सारे गल्फ को तबाह किया, which is responsible for major crisis across the globe.
अरे मुझे कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका से. आप ये बताइए कि अरुणाचल के बॉर्डर पे क्यों डाउट क्रिएट किया जा रहा है.
Now regarding the letters and the emails and so on and so forth, verified or unverified, let me tell you the official status, the official stand of the communists. The official stand is that we believe we should have good relations with China, with Pakistan, with Nepal and with all our neighbors. We are not warmongers. We are also a poor country. Pakistan is a poor country. China has its problems.
I'm sorry. Please do not speak about India as a poor country in the same breath as Pakistan.
Point out the hypocrisy of Vivek Srivastava. He sits here and says he hates capitalism as a communist. In his background, it says Invest Today. Sir, you yourself represent an investment firm. What kind of a capitalism hater are you? What kind of a hypocrite are you? And you are saying Pakistan is poor, China is poor. We need to have good relations with them. I'm sorry. The Indian state is not obligated to have any good relationships with countries that unleash terror attacks against our soldiers on the borders. How can you advocate for good relationship with the country that unleashes terror against our own citizens, against our soldiers on the borders? Isn't that treason?
You know, this is not even about having relations with China. It's a very simple question, sir. What does all of this long lecture that you have given have to do with the communication that says, listen, the border between India and China should be a dotted one. As far as India is concerned, there is no dot on that border. It is a well-established border that is Indian territory. What is your stand? Is Arunachal a part of India or is it disputed territory? What is the Communist Party of India's stand?
No. The Communist Party of India says, number one, as I repeated earlier, talk to China.
Is
Talk to
Communist
Pakistan.
Party of India
Do not go for warmongering.
saying
They
that
should not
Arunachal
challenge
is
us.
part
We
of
should not
India or
challenge them.
not?
Number one. Number two, listen to me. I'll be very clear. I mean, somebody pointed out that Comrade D. Raja and Comrade Sitaram Yechuri and attended the 100-year anniversary of the CPC. Yes, we will. It is right. There's nothing wrong in it. However,
Not even
if our
after
own
they've
borders
martyred
are in
20
danger,
soldiers
if
in
a nation
Galwan.
attacks our country, it is
Mr.
nation first
Srivastava,
for
not
us.
after they
Okay.
have martyred
It is
out
nation
20
first for
soldiers
us.
in Galwan.
Okay.
How do you sit
Yeah.
and here and say that there is nothing wrong with attending the centenary celebrations of the CCP merely months after they have martyred 20 Indian soldiers in Galwan?
Okay,
What does that make you?
Let's focus our attention
No,
very
absolutely
squarely
not. You
on
see,
how Mr. Srivastava is
yes,
refusing to comment on whether
Yeah.
the CPI, CPM think Arunachal is a part of India or not, or is it disputed territory. I think that silence also speaks volumes. But answer to it now.
No,
the,
yes.
The substantive
No,
point
no,
is,
absolutely not.
why not
we
take
are
action
very
instead
clear-
of
we are
continuously
very clear
talking
about
about
our borders.
NewsClick
We
and
believe-
attacking the Congress through NewsClick? Put them in jail.
Some people come and challenge us day in and day out. कार्रवाई करो. जब कार्रवाई होती है, क्यों कर दी? And when it's mandated by the courts and the courts uphold that कार्रवाई, they still keep crying. So then from tomorrow they should stop saying when the कार्रवाई happens. For instance, RGF got money from the Chinese embassy and from the Chinese government. They started saying, अरे कार्रवाई करो ना, क्या गलत किया, कार्रवाई करो. The first step of that कार्रवाई is that the license of the FCRA will be cancelled. Then the other criminal procedure will follow. When that karwai of FCRA cancellation took place, why did they start saying it's vendetta? Why did they say it's vindictive? Acha, forget that. You say emails ka bharosa nahi. Here is a man called Salil Shetty. He gets money from George Soros' foundation. He was in Bharat Jodo Yatra. And this man, George Soros, said that he wants intervention in India, and Adani's meltdown is a great opportunity. It will support democratic revival in India. And Praveen Chakravarti went and endorsed this entire statement by George Soros. Now, also apart from that, here is Rahul Gandhi in America, and he meets Sunita Vishwanath. Sunita Vishwanath also gets heavily paid by George Soros. Is George Soros a friend of India?
Is it entirely a coincidence that when we talk about shady individuals who have made no secret about what they think of India, people like George Soros, people like Neville Roy Singham, people like the government of China itself, somehow their activities or their collaborators in India find active support from the left and from the Congress? Is it a coincidence, Dr. John Dayal?
Let me first contradict my young friend. I thought that was a very charming picture of Mr. Modi on the swing with Mr. Xi. Both of them have a sense of humor, and I think I really like the picture. I'm not being sarcastic. It also shows really that China and India may have issues. They may even have border conflicts. Even the US and Canada have border tensions, and the US and Mexico always have border tensions, but they're not enemy countries. And we have not yet declared, the President and the Prime Minister have not yet declared China to be an enemy country. We have ambassadorial relations, we have huge trade relations. Our electronic industry could well collapse if China and Taiwan, which China says is part of China, were to collapse and stop their chip making. It will be 10 more years before the chip industry in India comes to a level where we can really say we are independent of China. We remain in a very close bond with China, which is economic, which also is cultural. Parties relate to parties there. Nobody has signed up. Governments don't sign.
Sir, India and China may have relations. What's the relation between Congress and the left and NewsClick? That's not a government that you're interacting with.
No.
What's that relation?
NewsClick, let us break it up into NewsClick, the business, and NewsClick, the journalism. If you're just taking journalism and business, the Indian Express has an 8-page special issue on China, paid advertisement every month or month and a half. That's not publicity. They sell their pages to anybody. That is business. In the Indian Express,
There's a difference, sir, because that is printed as an advertorial. You're making a wrong comparison.
I'm saying the
Having
same
an
thing.
advertorial
I'm saying
as
this.
opposed to a
I am
news
saying-
story is very different.
Ms. Joshi, I'm saying the same thing that you're saying. I'm saying that they take it as an editorial. But what is an editorial? It is to influence public opinion.
No, it's not. An advertorial, I'm not saying editorial, I'm saying advertorial. It is a paid advertorial.
Maybe, but why?
And all organizations are supposed to specify.
No, hold on.
Hold on.
Why
does
the Indian Express, why does the Times of India take
hold on a second. I will tell you.
People advertise in the Times of India
is very different.
in Times Now.
Hold on a second, sir.
Influence
hold on a
public
second.
behavior.
As a channel,
buying behavior.
I will tell you a difference. As a channel, we can have an advertisement for a toothpaste. But for me to say, no. It's not an editorial, it's an advertorial. I can have an advertisement, let me finish, sir, for a toothpaste and say, the advertisement can say it's a great toothpaste. But for me to run a news story and say, this is the best toothpaste according to dentists across the world, and this toothpaste is going to make your teeth rot, is propaganda disguised as journalism.
Absolutely.
I am being paid for it.
It would be propaganda. But what I was trying to say...
This is propaganda.
But what
was printed by NewsClick? Hold on a second. No, sir.
No. You wait a second.
Since you spoke about news...
You wait a second.
Let me actually...
Let you allow to complete the sentence. The Hindu, one of the most respected and old papers, had for years an editorial policy that was covering, let us put it politely, covering China because nobody else was covering China. That is an editorial policy, that's coverage. They have a correspondent in Beijing. What are you attacking NewsClick on?
I'll tell you. I'm very glad you asked the question.
I'm here to defend NewsClick because NewsClick, The Wire, and all these social media, alternate media has come up because Godi media has silenced this country. Chup raho.
They are the real Godi media, sir, because they're sitting in the Godi or the lap of China. And frankly, all these adjectives are water off a duck's back. Now let me tell you, when you're saying, what are you attacking NewsClick for? Let me quote to you, sir.
I would not call you a duck's
back. Let me quote to
you.
Hold on a second. Jokes aside, let's talk about facts. In March 2020, an email is sent from Neville Roy Singham to a Chinese former journalist who used to work with the Chinese government's mouthpiece. What does it say? Here are our friends in India. They are going to create information for people. That email says 3 articles are to be written. March, this email is written. In April that year, these are the articles written. Part 1 is on the growing xenophobia against China in the midst of shock. We show how the idea of a Chinese virus or Wuhan virus is ludicrous given the history of avian influenza. This is written by NewsClick. The next one.
Is it wrong?
We'll talk about it in a second. Second piece. Part 2 is on how China learned about SARS-CoV-2 in the weeks before the global pandemic. We forensically trace how Chinese health authorities came to understand the mysterious virus, determined it, and acted swiftly. The third part, how China broke the chain of infection. Mind you, viewers, this is in 2020 when the horrible second wave was being developed in China. Our news publication tells us here, China has broken the chain of infection, namely how state, Communist Party and public action in a determined way overcame the virus.
We Indians still do not know how many of our brothers and sisters died in COVID.
Sir, answer this. Is this journalism?
We do not know.
We do know.
We have been in a state of denial.
We do know that the Chinese were locking up their cities and regions until 2022 December. So when this news piece says that the Chinese have overcome the virus, what were the Chinese doing locking up their cities and citizens in 2022?
America. The most very specific pointed example which John Dayal will love. John Dayal ji, especially after the judgments that are coming out, do you think the Supreme Court is a credible organization?
What would you say?
I would think it is. I always think, even when the Ram Mandir verdict comes.
This is among the few things I agree with you on.
All right. So John Dayal ji, when the Supreme Court says that there is nothing wrong in the Rafale deal, but one organization and one party goes on and says that Rafale is bad, don't get the Rafales, even though the armed forces need it. 1 second now.
And why?
1 second, sir, please don't interrupt.
But
and 1 second, sir, 1 second, sir, don't interrupt. You don't need to interrupt me. You don't need to interrupt me. I'm finishing.
Let
me complete, sir. Let me complete.
Yes. But that doesn't give you the right to interrupt.
No, but I have not interrupted you at all. I am putting out a question. The Supreme Court and the CAG says nothing wrong with the Rafale deal. But then there are few enemies of India who don't want us to get the Rafales. And they put all kinds of stories. And a political party,
You fix the price of
Mr.
Rafale.
John Dale, if you're going to debate like this, and even I'll also be forced to interrupt you when you're speaking.
Interrupting me.
When?
The anchor.
She has given
Nobody
me
will
as the
interrupt
anchor.
anyone. Nobody will
She asked
interrupt
me to
anyone.
speak. I think you've
30
forgotten.
seconds he speaks,
She's
I'll
the
come back to
anchor.
you. I know.
The Supreme Court said nothing wrong in the Rafale deal. There is an organization which did 10 stories that Rafales should not be coming to this country, even though the armed forces wanted it. The Congress party also tried to peddle that lie. Don't you think that the organization, if it was doing a genuine editorial exercise, not at the behest of the Chinese, should have come out and said we were wrong on the Rafales?
Okay, answer.
Don't you watch Indian television? Don't you read the mainstream Indian media? Don't you know what they're peddling? Don't you know who they're selling?
Answer the
How
question,
do you eat
sir.
mangoes? How do you eat mangoes? Let me tell you about journalism. Let me give you a lesson in journalism. The first journalism lesson is listen to what others are saying. Challenge it on facts.
The Supreme Court challenged it and said
Let
that
him
it's
finish.
nothing.
Let him finish.
You have said
Yeah.
that Galwan China attacked.
Rafale.
You have
On
said
Rafale.
earlier. But you
On Rafale, right now it's only on Rafale.
So
Supreme
please
Court
give
has
us-
said Rafale
Please
ठीक है,
give us a
deal
reason.
ठीक है.
Okay,
This
all right.
organization
I
Congress
entirely
नहीं
agree.
है.
Rafale is a beautiful jet.
So then why don't they put a clarification
Please
that we
tell
were wrong
me.
on it?
But
Why
sir,
doesn't
as the
NewsClick
official
do it?
As the official spokesperson
Yes.
of the ruling party, could you
Yes.
tell us what is the price of the Rafale in various
Sir, you are sidestepping the question. Dr. John Dayal, we have a very specific question to you.
Seen it and said you
I have
agree.
shown you,
You just said you agree with
I have
Supreme
sh-
Court.
No, you are sidestepping. You're trying to take the debate into a tangent. I am asking you a very simple question, which is
You got
these
40
three.
words into my mouth.
No, these three are so-called journalistic pieces written by NewsClick. There are journalistic so-called news pieces written by NewsClick on the Rafale. These were proven to be wrong. When they said that Rafale was a scam, they were proven to be wrong. When they said that China has broken the chain in COVID, China was in the process of unleashing the second deadly wave of COVID on us. They were wrong. Why is it that they still get to be called journalists when they are actually doing China's propaganda? That's the question.
Just because you swallow hook, line, and sinker one set of sources doesn't mean that everything else is false.
Let me ask you a
We
simple
have
question.
not-
Do you think
we have
China-
not- Allow me to speak, please.
Do you think
We
China
have-
broke
we
the
have-
chain of infection in 2020? Yes or no?
How would I know? I'm not a scientist.
But
I'm not a
Supreme Court
scientist.
said Rafale is fine. Do you agree with the Supreme Court?
But Rafale is fine.
come and
It is
respond.
Rafale
The
right.
Rafale deal. I mean, the Rafale deal is fine. The Supreme Court said, don't you agree with that? You agree with
Lying.
NewsClick?
Shehzad, you're lying. The
Again.
Supreme Court never probed into the Supreme.
We are in an alternate reality.
Shehzad, Supreme Court.
Gentlemen,
Now
hold
you
on.
can look at
Hold on, we are going all over the place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think, Dr. John Dayal, don't have to be a scientist to know that in 2020 China had not broken the chain, because in 2020 itself we got the second wave of COVID. People died. How can you say China broke the wave when it gave us the second wave?
I don't know. Donald Trump came to Ahmedabad. Maybe he brought it with him. Who knows? We don't even know how many people died
who
on the
read the
parade.
Indian media, people who watch the Indian television, they do know where the second wave came from. People
because
who
they
read
watch-
newspapers,
because they watch
they
the-
know that the Chinese
because
did not
they watch-
overcome the
because
COVID
they
wave in
watch-
2020 itself.
Because they watch the Indian
Mr.
media.
Dayal, you
Therefore-
are not willing to
therefore the
acknowledge
need
the
for
fact
NewsClick.
that the
Therefore
Chinese
the
did
need
not
for
overcome the
rubbish.
virus in
Therefore the need for
2020.
violence. Therefore
The
the
Chinese
need
were on
for
a
an
lockdown
alternate-
until 2022
You
end.
can't-
And yet here you want to
You
believe the
can't-
propaganda
you can't
that
shut
the
me
Chinese
down.
overcame the
I was
virus in
born before
2020
you.
and
can't shut
somehow
me
Indians
down.
did not.
No.
You are
Because-
skeptical about Indians
because
combating the
you are-
virus. You're
because
skeptical
you are-
about India's vaccination program.
because-
And here you are giving China all the benefit of doubt.
Because
Why
they've
would
been
you do that?
misled by the Goldie media, there is therefore the need for NewsClick, for Bayer, for Ravish Kumar, for the alternate media. Because
That is called an alternate reality suited to someone's imagination.
You
That's
are
not
calling
media.
it alternate media.
Nikhil, I have a question for you. You defend
Just a
NewsClick here.
second.
Are you saying that the Chinese overcame the virus in 2020? Are we as Indians supposed to believe that?
No, I'm
Are
not
you
saying
telling
that.
us that India's vaccination
Absolutely
program
not.
was less successful than the Chinese, even when the Chinese vaccines have
knows?
faltered?
Who
We
knows?
all know that
We don't
the
know the
Chinese
figures.
population
We don't
is
know the
very much
figures.
vulnerable to the virus.
We don't know
Even
the
today,
figures.
hold on, sir. And their vaccination program has faltered. So would you believe the news organizations which say that India's vaccination program has failed, that India's export of vaccines has
Okay,
been a
let Vivek
mistake?
Srivastava take that question. Vivek Srivastava.
Yeah, see, first of all, I mean, it's all propaganda and talking in air. It is still not proven technically that COVID started in China. First of all, kindly read the medical journals. Do not go for cheap publicity, which certain channels could be doing. It is still not proven two things. That COVID started from China, number one. It could have started from anywhere. It could have started from any American laboratory. Not proven. Number two, as far as breaking the chain is concerned, listen. Yeah. No. Now listen to me. Now, as far as breaking the chain is concerned, yeah, if my government was intelligent, if my government was diligent, if my government was careful, if my government has not sold the oxygen, so many people would not have died. That is a bigger question.
Absolutely.
China की chain टूटी या ना टूटी, फर्क नहीं पड़ता. आपके लोग मरे, आप
I will not allow this debate to be derailed. This is not about the COVID handling. We have done that debate and the Supreme Court has ruled on it. Answer the question, sir.
Yeah.
The question is very simple.
Absolutely.
That if you are told by a
question?
news organization that
question?
China did better than India and America put together in handling COVID, that China actually lays claim over Arunachal, and you support those claims, how can you not be charged with supporting Chinese propaganda? That's a simple question.
No, please, Thank you. Now, please give me a little bit of time. I want to speak on both the issues. Number one, Mr. Neville Roy Singham is an American national, studied in Harvard. Okay, he could be sharing the working space with the Chinese. Americans are not against him. Europeans are not against him. The business houses there are not against him. Okay, so if he was such a great Chinese propagandist, I mean, these powers would have tried to stop him. They have not. सिर्फ हम ही सो के जग रहे हैं.
हाँ तो गुड ना.
Somebody's his parents.
अच्छी बात है. So you are saying हम act कर रहे हैं, बाकी नहीं कर रहे, तो बाकी बेवकूफ नहीं है. हम बेवकूफ नहीं, हम act कर रहे हैं.
To a journalistic media house, which is no. Let me speak, please. If he has a soft corner for the communists because his parents were socialists and comrades, and he arranged funds for a no-profit, no-loss organization called NewsClick, which has been running in losses for years and years. कभी यहाँ से डोनेशन, कभी वहां से डोनेशन, तब वो जाकर के कुछ दिखा पाते हैं.
वो डोनेशन नहीं दे रहा है सर, वो पैसा दे रहा है लिखने के लिए, to do the bidding of China.
कितने लोग पढ़ते हैं? हाँ, what is the viewership? आमिर, क्या चाइना का प्रोपेगेंडा इस देश में लाने के लिए न्यूज़क्लिक सक्षम है? What is the viewership? It's a small channel for the elite.
So unkind to NewsClick. Why are you so unkind to NewsClick?
But then, okay,
20 seconds and coming.
Please. John Dayal ji, you can't interrupt. I have been very kind and I'm not interrupting.
Please, 20 seconds, yes.
If, and you know how much I regard you, sir, so 20 seconds, just 20-25 seconds. If NewsClick was so unworthy, why were they getting 11,500 rupees per share when they were a newly incorporated company? Is also something that somebody can ask, and ED is asking that question. Because if it was you who did that, ED would come to your house also. Now let's come to a larger point. The left parties think that there is Islamophobia in India. Right? It's their point of view. They keep issuing statements on it. They have number of statements. Vivek Srivastava and John Dayal ji, John Dayal, I think he'll answer it. Is there Islamophobia in China with what they do with the Muslims in Xinjiang? And have you issued any statement from your party officially on that ever? Like you keep doing for India? Since you're all friends, you'll all get together, discuss the communist ideology.
It's all American propaganda.
Xinjiang, it's propaganda.
American propaganda.
It's American propaganda that Muslims can't keep the name Muhammad, that the Quran is burned and desecrated. The Holy Quran is desecrated. Mosques are being broken, and you're saying it's propaganda. I feel offended.
And you don't want good relations with your neighbors. That is the problem.
Mr. Dayal, the champion of human rights. No, let the champion of human rights speak. He's the champion of human rights in India.
Okay, yes, Dr. John.
Xinjiang province.
As the self-appointed champion of human rights.
Yes, I also appoint you.
Thank you so
much. With the power in me.
Islamophobia needs to be denounced.
Yes. Does it happen in China, Xinjiang province?
It happens in India. It happens in China. It happens in
Philippines. Why does this man not acknowledge it? Why does this man not acknowledge it?
It happens
Why
in
did he say it's propaganda?
It happens in India.
Why does he?
I'm worried about
why
India.
he said it's propaganda? Please explain to him.
What
Please explain to him.
I will explain.
Because he gets Neville's money.
But here I am.
Because he gets Neville's money. You are honest. You can have that view. No problem. You can have that view in India. It happens. It happens elsewhere. Why is he not saying it? See, John, you're not the issue. You're not the issue.
You're really so long. I should call you Mr. Deliwala. 1 minute, please.
Okay.
I have come here.
This is my friend. It's all right.
I've come here to defend NewsClick and thereby to defend all alternate media, which has become a necessity.
Sir, I've just asked you a different question. I'm not going into that. If you give me 10 seconds, permit me 10 seconds. The good John will permit me 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds.
Jain will not permit you 10 seconds.
Achha, John, Jain and Poonawalla all in one row.
No, since
You know, I have to say though, before Mr. Jain comes in, that this has become a very convenient stick to beat people with. You know, you keep talking about ghettoization. The moment somebody says an uncomfortable fact, you will say, if it's a political party, you will say it's a fascist party. If it's an organization, you will say they're Godi media. Who gave you the right to give these certificates? There are here evidence.
The same agency
there are
which has given
evidence
the right
of
to give
people
certificates to others.
who are on payrolls, who are taking money to write an article.
You're demonizing innocent
Nobody is
people.
demonizing, sir.
You're
There is a
demonizing
money
innocent
trail.
people with fake data.
There is a money
with
trail.
fake arguments.
I don't
and with
take.
a political motive.
I don't take
No,
any money from
we
any
need
government.
alternate media. We
You
need
take
social
money.
media
do you know what happens
because
to alternate media in China? You're making a case for China here. Do you know what happens to alternate media in China? Do you know what happens to mainstream media in China?
I have
There is
demanded
no
of the government of
alternate media. There's barely a media.
India to
There
get
are
back
only
land
mouthpieces of
from
the
China.
government.
I have demanded from the government of India.
No, you're
to
making
get
a
back
case for how
land
things
from
work out in China.
I have demanded from the government of India. Why are they sleeping when China is making inroads?
Okay.
Have you
building
pointed to where they're
infrastructure?
making
One at a time, please.
I have
Nikhil
demanded-
Jain.
I
Nikhil
wanted
Jain.
to know
Okay.
Mr. Rajnath.
Again, sir, you're
Why not?
derailing. Nikhil Jain.
So, Padmaja, we started the debate about NewsClick receiving Chinese funding. BJP spokesperson Shehzad Poonawalla, my good friend here, what has he talked about so far? Uyghur Muslims, Arunachal, Rafale deal, Supreme Court talking about Rafale deal, entrepreneurship, Indian vaccination program, COVID. The question is why? Because he's trying to hide the intelligence failure of his government. Padmaja, you are saying that I have access to letters. I was in another channel yesterday. They had access to the letters. You are showing to the country letters that one news media organization in the country is receiving money from Chinese Communist Party. They are peddling Chinese propaganda in India. What is the Indian intelligence infrastructure doing?
Lovely.
Shehzad, let me complete.
Complete, my brother, complete.
Are you the intelligence chief, or do we have a separate intelligence chief in the country?
Okay.
Why is the BJP not acting on it? Now he is going to raise up that the Delhi High Court has a stay on the
I'm not.
proceedings,
Don't
but there are
just write them down.
there are multiple things.
Just write them down. Don't
The
predict
Delhi High Court has not asked the intelligence agencies to not probe into interference of China in Indian media.
There are people within our country who are being accused, rightly or wrongly, that's a matter of investigation, of not just pandering to the interests of another country, which is inimical to India's best interests, but also actively promoting their propaganda. When you get political cover for such forces within India, should it be seen as an innocent mistake or a deliberate strategy? That is something that even India's voting public will be asking itself. Thanks very much, all gentlemen. Mr. Vivek Srivastava from outside in Delhi for joining us on the National Debate.